Hello? Okay, so I've never tried this before, but we're going to see if we can do a Q&A. Just ask me anything and I will answer it right here. So right now there are 2 people viewing. If any of you could comment, just saying that I know you could hear me. That would be helpful. Yeah, I spent like the last hour just making sure that the audio would work well, because like I said, I've never done this before, and even though I, tested out the solution, like a couple of days ago before I even announced I was going to do this, I was having some problems with the audio this morning, so hopefully this works. Cool. So, let's see how many people. 3 people so far. So, any of you have anything you want to know in Finale, or should I just start rambling on things? Yeah, because this is going to be new and interesting, and like now have a new respect for like people that game and stream every day, because just the software and logistics is completely different than what I was expecting. So hopefully everyone stays doing well. Okay, so since I'm not getting any feedback for right now, I'm just gonna. Ooh. Why I chose Finale as opposed to Sibelius or Durico? Okay, so the original reason actually was that when I was in high school and really starting to get interested in the music, my parents bought me a copy of Finale. They bought me Finale print music. So that's why I really started in Finale. Now, why did I, continue using Finale as opposed to Sibelius or Durico? These are actually 2 completely different reasons. So let's start with Sibelius first, because when Durico wasn't out really when I went into college and really started learning how to use Finale and everything. So Sibelius, I just didn't like my personal preference didn't like the user interface as much. So let me go into Finale quickly. So one of the things I really like Finale is the level of abstraction and clarity you have to a lot of scores. Ooh, looks like my keyboard shortcuts aren't working. So we're going to do things the old-fashioned way today. So, like the expressions is a great way to go look at that, where you have, all these, categories that are defined, and they are, have very, clear meaning and clear styles. So like I can go into any of these categories, like, I don't know, I don't want these to be italics anymore. Okay, and these aren't italics. It applies to the entire score. Now Sibelius does have similar things to this. It just happens to be that Sibelius, instead of 5 or 6 categories by default has like 20 or 30, and which means that it is more like the word text editor, where there are like 20 or 30 different styles for text, but really there's only like a few key things you need with writing things in Finale. Like, I keep forgetting my keyboard shortcuts aren't working right now for some reason. So like, there's tempo markings. That's just these big things that are going to go over here. Tempo alterations, they form a tempo marking, but they look slightly different. Expressive text, they go below the staff. Technique text go above. Rehearsal markings are rehearsal markings. And that really gets you like 90-95% of the way there. And so Sibelius, in my opinion, is overcomplicated that way. The other thing is I tried learning Sibelius actually for a couple hours, and maybe it was just me, but I could not figure out how to enter in notes. And that's kind of a problem. The other thing I really like about Finale is its I'm trying to think of a good way of showing it, but it's a lot more, rigid and higher level. What do I mean by that? What's a good way of explaining it? Like, so there's the extraction here. Similar thing with, the page setups and everything. Well, I guess while I'm thinking of a good analogy for that, the last thing is, the other thing I just really like about Finale is that it's actually the gold standard of for like music engravers around the world. Almost every single one prefers Finale. And so if you want to make your music look professional, it's easier to do in Finale. Now, that's for a couple reasons. Again, like I mentioned earlier with the dynamics or the expressions. To be honest, I'm probably going to be using the expressions as examples a lot more because that's like the only things I know how to do without my keyboard shortcuts. Or I shouldn't say the only things, but quickly and easily. For instance, let's say you have, tempo marking there, and you have, tempo alteration there, and yeah, we're going to go with that. In Finale, you can move these as a unit like that. And I believe Sibelius, it's not exactly that strict, where you edit everything individually. It's a lot more point and click. You can't edit the general rule sets behind the page. So that's why Finale. Why Sibelius? That's why Finale as opposed to Sibelius. Why Finale as opposed to Dorco. Dorco is actually a great program. Really the only, and I've played with it, really like it. Only complaint about Dorco is I can't use the Maestro font. And if you don't know what I mean, let's go to fonts. What's a good one? Yeah, sure, like this. Like, it's in Maestro. This is in Maestro. Pretty much everything, or pretty much all of the music parts are in Maestro font. And I really, really like Maestro font for two reasons. One, it just looks really clean and crisp, especially when you print out on a good printer. Two, it is the gold standard font for professional music engravers nowadays. Almost everyone uses, like in the very top levels of engraving, almost everyone uses Maestro. Doesn't matter if you're like doing published concert works, film music, or if you're doing like musicals. Almost everyone uses Maestro. Even Sibelius users will use Maestro at the highest levels. And again, that's because it's crisp and really well balanced. You can't use it with Dorco. And that's not a fault of Dorco, that's just the fault of maybe sick of not using that font format, the SMUFL format, I believe it is what it's called. That's the main reason why I prefer Finale over Dorco. Hi, Frederick. And I guess Jeremy, and Jeremy, I might have not said hi explicitly to you, but cool. So, simple entry versus speedy entry. Now that is actually an interesting topic. I actually don't really know how to use speedy entry. That is one of my goals for like the next month or two, is to really learn how to use speedy entry. So I can't really give you an opinion on that. I've always used simple entry. I've gotten typically quite fast with simple entry. Like, let's see if we can go to Keyboard Maestro. You see that a lot of these have to do with speedy entry. Where are they? Like, I have a shortcut for speedy entry, a really complicated shortcut. Or is it in... it actually might just be in the speedy entry tools. Or simple entry options over here. Yeah, the keyboard shortcuts here. I'm not sure where they are on this. Here they are. So as you can see, that these actually all point to my left hand. And most of my... can I quickly and easily pull up? Okay. And if you go over here, picture of keyboard, most of my keyboard shortcuts actually fall on the left side of the keyboard. That's just that way I can have my one hand there doing all the keyboard shortcuts, my other hand either on the mouse or over here doing keyboard shortcuts as well over there as needed. So I just gotten really fast at using simple entry. I do really like the fact that speedy entry is almost completely done with keyboard shortcuts, which is why I want to learn it. I just need to take the time. So that's that. Hi, is there a way, or hi Pedro, glad to see you here. Is there a way of creating an articulation expression smart shape and save it permanently like the program instead of only in the remaining project? Okay, I will get to that, but Jeremy has a follow-up question. So yes, I have actually modified most of the keyboard shortcuts in the program. Most of them originally do make sense or do make decent sense if you're just starting out and are trying to learn the keyboard shortcuts. Just for me personally, I don't really care if it makes sense as long as it works and it's really fast. So yes, most of the keyboard shortcuts, I wouldn't say most of the keyboard shortcuts program wide, but like there's 10% of the tools you're going to use like 95% of the time in pretty much any program. And those, yes, I have modified. I've modified them. I believe some of you have. If you've seen my keyboard shortcut video, I never remember where it is in here. Keyboard shortcuts. So, shortcuts, app shortcuts. I've modified a lot of them here. I've modified a lot of them with Keyboard Maestro, and I've modified quite a few of them. I think when I use the judge stream, there's quite a few of them there. Oops, these are my document styles. So actually, this is a great segue into. Sorry, I'm forgetting your name. Who was it? Into Pedro's question, because I just happened to pull up my document styles. So, if you want to know more detail about this, there's actually a video in my back catalog. It's, I think, called Same Settings for Every Document. But it's a way of basically utilizing document styles. That way you never have to worry about, having to change the same things over and over and over again for a document. And so what is this? So when you create a new document, you'll notice that you have the ensembles over here, and you have document styles over here. Now, when you first look at this, you may think, oh, it's just different ways of different styles for the documents that are built in with Finale. You can actually go ahead and modify these. So as you can see, I've modified this one called Studio just because it matches a lot more the studio practices in the LA studios, like from Joanne Kane, and take some ideas from RPM Seattle. I definitely have not stolen any other document styles, but it builds on a lot of these ideas that a lot of professionals I've seen use for creating really good sight reading music. That's what it's called, Studio. And so if you can see, if I open up a new document, grand staff, yada yada, next, it's all there, and it looks like my normal document. Even if we go in the parts, it looks like my normal part. And so the way you can find this document is if you go up here to Finale Preferences, and then under Folders, Document Styles, and you just follow this path. In my case, it's Macintosh AZ, Library, Application Support, yada yada yada, Document Styles. And then you can modify that document, how you normally want to, make the changes you'd normally want, save it, and then you don't even have to restart Finale. Next time you pull up the Setup Wizard, and you should see it here, and you can just pull it up and it will be like normal. So that is how you keep these same settings for every single document. Yes, and you can still keep the articulations, expression, and smart shapes there. And the nice thing about using document styles is it's actually still not saved in the program per se. You can have multiple different document styles if you're working on multiple different styles of projects. Okay. Hi Gianni. So I don't speak Italian, but I think I can potentially guess what this says. If anyone knows Italian, let me know if I'm wrong. Something, but still a computer, install, version Finale 6 in Italian and English. Are you asking if it's possible to install both Finale, the Italian version, and the English version on the same computer? If that's what you're asking, I don't know. I've never used non-English versions of Finale. That is a good question. This is actually the kind of question where if you go either to the Finale forum or the Finale support, you actually might get an answer. So for the Finale forum, actually, let's just ask a question right now for you. And knowing some of the people on here, we actually might get it by the end of the stream. New topic. Quickly, anyone else? No other comments? Okay. Do you know if it's possible to have both the Italian version and English version of Finale loaded on one computer the same time? Most people on here don't write as if it's an email, but I think it's fun. So submit. So we actually might get an answer on that by the end of the hour. So cool. So glad you can have all of you could actually join. I was half expecting for absolutely no one to join. So it's really cool that we're having a discussion. So thank you. I guess I could actually translate this using Google Translate just to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. I don't know why on my computer it always goes to Latin, but on the same computer. Okay, so yeah, I did get that right. How to organize the expressions alphabetical order is the best way. Is this possible? Okay, Frederick. Let's see. We're going to play around with it. I do not believe it's possible to automatically organize things in alphabetical order. However, in the expressions, you can actually use these arrows to move things up and down and organize it manually. So like I could move that up there, press the about say, let's see, that's good. And if you save this in your document styles and everything, it will it will save the ordering. So that is one way. Is there a way to automatic order them? I am not entirely sure. I don't think so, just from what I know in Finale. Let's see if there's a setting, because I don't believe there is. One thing that you can do, which is one of the things I have grown to do. So if you have a library of dozens of yes, but when you have tons of expressions, yeah, I do not know of a really good way of organizing them per se. One of the things you can do is in the chat stream, which I know many of you have been really bugging me about. And I know I keep saying that we're really, really close. It's just that every time I say we're really, really close, we find like a fairly good bug we have to fix. But one of the things you can do in the chat stream is, let's see, I'm used to playing this with my hands and not on the computer. Yeah, so expression text. You can actually type in expressive text like this. Like, I don't know. Here, let's say we have the expressive text, like Expressivo, right? Normally shorten that out. And it gets the Expressivo. And of course, it adds it to, the bottom of the list. Well, what if I want to add, Espressivo over here? No, not Express. Espressivo over there, right? It adds it as well, but in fact, it actually just uses the current one you have. So that's one of the things that organizationally, you can actually use the JetStream quite a bit for, is you don't even have to know where any of your expressive text or technique text are in Finale. It'll just automatically use the ones you already have and make new ones if you don't have it. So I know that's not quite answering your question, but that is potentially some sort of a workaround you can use when we finally finish it. I really want to finish that. I at least get it good enough so that way we can, share it with all of you. Okay. Dove posso trovare la risposta alla domanda. I apologize. That is probably terrible pronunciation of Italian. And I have no idea what this means, so we're going to go back to Google Translate. And I don't know why it always shows up Italian. If any of you know how to fix the default here, that way it's detecting language, let me know. Where can I find the answer to the question? Okay. So Finale form. Let's see if anyone's answered this yet. No one's answered this yet. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's the link to the hi Gianni, I realize all of you can see this, so it doesn't really matter. Here's the link to the post I made on Finale forum. Once someone answers it, you can basically see what their answer is. You can find it there. The other thing I would look at, there's two other places for answering questions like that I would look at. Okay, first of all, there's any of the Facebook groups like Finale Power Users, or even Finale 101, I think is another popular one. Let's see. Another place you can look at that is the Finale manual. I'm just going to look up Mac because I like Mac, or I'm on a Mac, so I usually use that one. That might have your answer here. You might have easily already checked out the Finale manual, but here, in general, let's see if anyone else has something. Okay, someone else has something, so I will probably get to that really soon. Let's quit out of that. So you can find a lot of things here. This is the official manual by Finale, and worst case scenario. This is, Finale support is typically slow. It might take you a couple days to get a response, but you will often get a response like that. So if we go to, I don't know how to easily search up Finale support because I only talk to them like once a year or so. But that is another place to go. You could probably search it. Finale support. Yeah. Is this it? I don't think that's it. Yeah, that's just an old article. But, somewhere on this website, I'm sorry I can't be of more help. Get a 60-day trial. So if you don't have Finale, it sounds like probably most of you do, but if you don't, you have a 60-day trial now. Yeah, it's usually down here. Okay, we'll find that. If there's not a question and there's a break, I will get back to looking up Finale support for that. Hi, nice work. Oh, hi, Sebio Jazz. Is it possible to keep a one-sheet document modification in the option box? Will also the expressions for all Finale documents by default? Thanks. Okay. Someone just clarified what I think you're asking, because I'm not entirely sure. So let's go back to this. Is it possible to have the same expressions in all Finale documents by default? Basically, if I believe you're asking, not new there, I want it to be in Finale. So if I were to do something new here, right, and create a new document like this, if you have different built-in expressions in default or by default in this document, I believe that's what you're asking. And the answer is yes, and I'll get back to that. Let me just see if I oops, that's the live stream. That's live stream software. So the first part, how do you keep a one-sheet document modification in option box? So for that, are you asking how do you basically in this document option box, is there a way to change these options in like a short one-page document or something like that? That way it always shows up in future documents. I think that's what you're asking. And if you're asking that, the answer is yes, the same way for both. Now there is an easy way. I kind of already explained it earlier in the live stream, so I don't want to take up anyone's more time. But basically, you're going to look at in Finale for the document style. So anytime you create a new document with the document setup wizard, you have all these different document styles. Now these aren't just like different styles for the fonts, the positionings, and the way that things look. These actually save like all the document options you had and all the expressions, all the articulations, all the smart shapes, everything that's specific to those document settings that you have. And you can actually create your own. If you go up to Finale Preferences and then under Folders, go to Document Styles, and there's this big long path that'll show you where your document styles are saved. You can either modify the current ones or add your new one yourself. And then you select that in the setup wizard, and that will save all the styles and everything. So I made a video on this in the past, which I'm just going to link to you in the chat. That way, if you want to find out even more, without having to take a ton of time and saying the same thing again. Yes, I just want to keep my modifications when I add some expression in the selection option box. Okay. Yes, I believe, if I'm understanding this all correctly, the document styles is what you're looking for. So the two things I do want to point out, which I haven't actually addressed on this channel with document styles, is that anything in the document preference or in the Finale preferences, so anything in this is part of Finale as a whole. These apply to every single document, whether they're opened or not, and these are basically the ways Finale itself is running. So you can't save these per document. However, everything in here can be saved in your document. Everything in here can be saved in your document styles. Everything in here can be saved in your document styles, including, any changes you make to the categories. If you add a category, that's why I have a percussion list category by default over here. Where let's see, where I could go over here, percussion list, and we're gonna say, snare, yada yada yada, like that. And if I go to the part, it's a nice percussion list. I didn't add that to this new document. It was added in the document styles. Yep, everything in the articulations, everything here can be edited in your document styles. Different chord styles, text styles, text fonts, almost everything you want specific to a document setting can be created in your document styles. So hopefully that helps. If that doesn't answer your question, or at least get you where to look for that, just let me know and I will try to explain it better. So yeah, that was actually quite a bit of, talking a long streak. So yeah, at any point, if you feel like I haven't, so I have to save a library in the same file each time from the document options it is. Okay. Time from the document options, is it? So let me put it this way. You can save libraries to save the document options. That's not what I would personally recommend. So the way you're thinking about it can work. I believe absolutely it can work. Rather here, let's back up and go from the beginning, and let's create a new document style, so that way you can see what I'm talking about. Let's go back to Finale, and let's go over here. We're going to create a new document, based off of the engraved style. We just have to add something because Finale makes us add an instrument, which I always thought was amusing how Finale makes you add an instrument, but you can always go back here and just delete it if you don't want it. But anyways, let's say you changed a setting here. What's a good setting to change? Let's do time signature size, because I like playing with these. The top adjustment, we're going to say the top symbol is 3 spaces higher. That makes it look weird like that. You don't actually have to do that specific setting, but I'm just showing you what it is. And then let's save it. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's a good way of saving it, because there are certain documents where I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show you in my Finder right now. Okay, so instead of doing that, we're going to back it up. So you've started with the engraved style, made whatever changes you want here in your document settings here. Let's just for fun also add an expression, like technique text. Yeah, sure, why not? I like technique text. My custom expression, right? And we can still delete it. It'll still, oh, my keyboard shortcuts are working now. It'll still be here in the expression selection. Then all you have to do is save this file, the default, .musx file, into the folder that's in here, the document styles. Actually, if I click that, we should be good. Yeah, so all you have to do is save it in this folder. And when you do, and then you create a new document, you just save it with whatever your name just select the one, whichever name you saved, and it will automatically have that, change in the document options, and it will have that expression that we created. To do that, you do not need to create a separate library. You're just saving the document, and even if they had music in the document style, totally fine. It'll automatically delete any of that musical content for you. So hopefully that answers your question. So save document as FTP. What's an FTP file? Oh, you're asking a slightly different question. I see. Okay. You're asking if you can save specifically a modification from your last document, not necessarily from any document to any new document you create. I believe, is that what you're asking, Sebio? Let's see, how would you do that? So for that, you could create it as a library and import it. Let's see. So if you save a library, you could save all your document options in a library. Or you could save like all your expressions. Where is the expressions? I'm slow at reading these dialog boxes that I'm not used to reading. Yeah, text expressions. You could save those all in a library. I'm not sure if you could save a specific one in a library. But you go, okay, save it, and then in the new document, you load the library. That is one way of applying the changes. Okay. So yes, if it's specifically the last modification from the last document, we've gone about every tool I would use between the document styles and the libraries. Neither one of those can specifically isolate the last modification. They both can include the last modification. I think the last and final place I would look, and I don't believe there's a tool for that, but I believe it is possible to create a JW Lewis script that would do that for you. I've never actually personally created a JW Lewis script that will change your document styles based off another, but somewhere in here, I remember reading, files. I think these are all the preferences, so you could get all the preferences. But somewhere in here, I remember reading. Okay, file info text. These aren't what I'm looking for. But where you can actually, iterate through all the different files you have open. It might not be possible, and it's going to take work that I don't think anyone has done yet in JW Lua, but that might solve your problem. Sorry, I don't have a fully satisfying answer to that. But those are the directions I would go. I will definitely think about that one some more, because it seems like that could be useful to specifically, keep the last modification from the last document. If you want it in every new document forward, the way I do it is I just, then manually by hand update my document styles. But I don't think that's exactly what you want. If it is, that's the way I would do it. I would just do it by hand once again in your document styles. Well, glad you have helped, Sebia. I know it's not the most satisfying answer, but if it gets the job done, sometimes that's the best you can do. So while we're kind of having a lull here, a question for everyone. Is this something you would like to do more regularly? Like perhaps instead of, if, the open Q&A format is not, might get old and repetitive every now and then. Maybe not, I have no idea. But even some, in different variants of it, or different aspects of music, or some sort of this live streaming interaction. Do you like it, not like it? Find it's, helpful? Dialog box for the save library. Good. Glad that helped. Yeah, really curious to see what your thoughts are of how this is going. Some of these questions are actually really good questions and are making me think a lot more about Finale than in ways I don't normally think about. So it's, at the very least, it's, on my end, At the very least, it's helping me understand like more about how you guys actually use Finale, which probably will help with the content going forward. Because if I do ever have like more satisfying ways of solving these, I will make a video about it. Or if any of you have any more questions you would like. I'm curious, how many people are here right now? Currently we have 4 people here. Cool. Oh, anyone answered the question over here that doesn't look like it yet? So one thing to note that I believe in about an hour, I found out this morning that the Finale Power Users group is having like some sort of Zoom meeting. So if you're in that group, do check it out. Okay, so how do you set numbers, measure numbers in your default document? And super helpful, curious, how can you go further in depth on your workflow? Yes. Jeremy, yes, I definitely want to go more in depth, and I guess I can do that now. Let me first get to Frederick's question, and then I will go more in depth now, as well as in the future. I'm planning on doing that a lot more. I'm also in the middle of if you want to creating a course that goes step by step every aspect of my workflow. Hoping to get that out literally as soon as possible. My personal deadline's next Friday. Might not happen, but that'll go into like far more depth than I can go into any one video or any one live stream. But yes, I will be doing that a lot more, and we'll get to that. So how do we set measure numbers in your default document? Okay, and I mean on the score and the parts. So let's delete this. So this is my default document right here that I have open. And so the way I set measure numbers is actually the same way you would create measure numbers anywhere for any document. Up here with the measure tool, then you come over here to measure number regions. Do the measure number regions you want. As for the specific way I do it, as you can see, I have measure numbers below every single part. I'm probably going to make these a bit smaller because, they kind of take up a lot of visual space. And so if you come up here to the measure tool, measure numbers, and edit them, you can play around with, pretty much any aspect you want. So, like I can show every 4 measures like that. And when you save it, it will show up in any new document. Is there something I think that answers your question, but is there something more you're asking about, like specifically what I do on the score and the parts? So okay, so you can have, from this measure dialog box, you can have different measure numbers in the score and the parts. So you have, the score ones here and all the linked parts. So in the score, for the most part, on my specific one, it's, just the defaults, the top of the staff. Hide first measure in region, that's just making sure that the first one doesn't just say 1. So it doesn't start the system, enclosure, set font. Here's the font I use. if you want to copy those settings down. And positioning, that's the positioning I use. And that's how you can set them to be different in both the score and the parts. In the score, to be honest, this is actually, I almost never use this score as it is for the final printed parts. Because like if you were to build up a larger score, like I don't know, let's just add several instruments in here. Guess we're having a lot of oboes. Right, having a measure number up here with these specific settings, not terribly useful. You get collisions with the lines, but I almost never actually use those measure numbers. Again, I like a lot of my scores to be, precisely for sight reading, or if not sight reading, very close to sight reading. That way, like on the second or third time, you're not deciphering the music on the page. It's you can read it as fast as humanly possible. So technically, I have another script here for conductor scores. It starts as a keyboard maestro script, yada yada yada. Goes like that, which will create the measure numbers down here. Oh, I need to update this with the new font. Good to know. And that's how I do the measure numbers in the score, but all that does is it's a JW Lua script that just changes these settings. So technically set font over here would be Roboto, condensed, light, sure, 14-point font. I feel like there's probably more to your question than that, but and for multiple silent bars. Okay. So let's see how we're going to do this. So you can still do that in using these same methods. I'm specifically just letting you know, in full transparency, changing this one part of my workflow right now, as I'm playing around with the perfect layout plugin to do it more automatically. I'm just getting those settings to match up with what I like. But the way I used to do it as of like a week ago in here, is what people do, which is why I don't include them. That's just that. So for me personally, they look the exact same, and as everything else, they're not visually differentiated. That's just because I like consistency a lot. But that's how I go about doing that. Does that answer your question? Cool. I think it does. Okay, workflow. So this is very much a multi-part answer because there are multiple stages of the workflow. So let's see how far we can get in a reasonable time. So the first stage is obviously creating a part. Now you'll see me oftentimes in these tutorials going through the setup wizard, creating parts and everything. To be honest, that's just because it's a lot easier to understand how to create a part like that. The way I am transitioning to creating parts is I created a keyboard maestro script, where I can select an ensemble like this, trombone choir. That's really the only one I've programmed, but that's just because it takes a lot of work to do these. But if you're creating like part after part after part after part after part, it's useful. Then title, we're going to say test. It doesn't matter what I'm saying here. Me, that's me. Tempo marking, whatever you want, and hit OK. And then it will automatically go through the setup wizard for me. I am experimenting. Yeah, and then it's going to eventually set up all the actual, sizing of the staffs and making sure that it's laid out 2 per page, like it's supposed to be for this ensemble. That's like the last step I need. And then as well as, changing those to tenor clef. Honestly, changing these to tenor clef is the hardest thing I've ever had to do with Keyboard Maestro and JW Lua. that's the ideal first step. Then, you know, for no entry, currently I'm using simple entry. The way I normally do it on the channel, where I have, you know, a keyboard Maestro script that is activated by Control C to hit the repitch tool. You know, that just helps me select, you know, the keyboard Maestro script. It helps me select the repitch tool. And one of the things you'll find if you know, select the simple entry dialog box there, or the simple entry tool there, or even the simple entry tool here, is it always brings up this dialog box, and for me that always covers the playback controls, and I don't like that. So the reason for the keyboard Maestro script versus something else is that actually in this step it will just X out of that not dialog box, but you know, like that, you know, hovering box over here automatically. So if we watch the script, you can see for a split second up here it X's it out. So that's that, and then, you know, just using keyboard shortcuts A, S, D, F, V, C, X, Z to get through all of those, entering notes like that. Control D to select the articulation tool, where I can, you know, do a variety of articulations. You know, normal keyboard shortcuts. I eventually want to switch this to speedy entry, or at least be able to be fluent in both. So that's most of the note entry stuff. You know, there's, you know, a lot of JW plugins over here that, you know, make certain parts faster. Let's see. Are you asking any more questions? Okay, I'll get back to that. Let me just finish this thought. So that is, you know, the no entry stage of things. There's no, you know, big satisfying, you know, one big aha moment. It's just a bunch of small little optimizations, keyboard shortcuts, and if I need to, like using the jet stream over here to say like chord note equals 120 to add the tempo markings up there, or even like, you know, maestoso chord note equals 120. In general, with the workflow, anytime you can use keyboards, it's faster than anything else. I personally don't use a MIDI controller or a, you know, MIDI keyboard to enter notes. To me, the time it takes to, you know, move your hand over there, find the notes you're playing, and then actually input the notes is just a lot more time than, you know, moving your mouse around like this. Because I could say, okay, I want to enter a note here, 1, 2, I've entered my first note. Versus with the keyboard, you know, it takes at least, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds to start entering in notes. And then for, you know, cleaning up the parts, then I have another script. So this one, it just makes sure that also the miscellaneous, you know, part things are done. Yada yada yada. Normally there's not multi-measure rests on a score, but because every measure is filled, so I don't really care about that. And then you can see the parts are created. And then the last thing I do, which I have a video coming out tomorrow, or I shouldn't say the last thing, but the next thing I do, so I have a video coming out tomorrow, is I work on spacing, you know, everything out nicely so that way it looks good. You know, if I need to come up here, this is the one thing I don't have a keyboard shortcut for, because I rarely have to do it, is, you know, spacing out these multi-measure rests when they're only on one line like that. Then the last step, which again I'm still figuring out the details, is normally then I would go through every single part and manually look for collisions. Most of them are avoided by just the document styles. But I'm getting the JW Perfect, or not the JW Perfect Layout, the Perfect Layout plugin to get those details for me. And then I'm done. That's a very brief overview of the process. And again, in the future, I'm going to do a lot more in-depth stuff. As well as showing me like the, you know, specific, you know, keyboard shortcuts I'm using that I've changed from before, the specific macros, the specific, JW Lewis scripts. Yeah, Jeremy, the plugins are really going to help you out. This channel does already have a lot of, sample scripts and plugins to help you get started with it. There's definitely a lot more I can put on there. This is one of the reasons I'm going to video a week. So back to Frederick's question. So yes, I do have it by default to show measure numbers on every single measure. There are certain situations where this is not ideal. For instance, like if it is a concert piece, that can actually just be distracting having that measure numbers. But if you know there's, limited rehearsal time, let's say if there's a limited rehearsal time, players are basically sight reading. And, anything where, speed and time is limited and of the essence, that actually helps out a lot. For instance, like conductors, there's some pieces where, you will have like 26 measures of rest, and then you'll have, let's see if I can break this apart real quickly. Yeah, so you'll have, let's see, now we put it back together. No, what was that for? So you will have, like 26, 25 measures of rest, and then, then you finally get a rehearsal number. Well, it can be incredibly time inefficient to, start, the 10th measure in. And say, okay, 10 measures after my stoso, and then everyone has to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not everyone counts correctly, and that just delays the entire rehearsal by a minute or two. Versus having every single measure number marked, I could say, okay, start at measure 4, and everyone knows where that is. They don't have to count. Or if I say, okay, start at measure number 25. If you didn't have this here, like, where's 25? Well, it's, I don't know, like 20 after this, or, 6 before that one. And that's just, a lot of thinking. It's a lot easier to see, okay, if 25 is in the middle of here, and you just count 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31 I play. It's mainly for rehearsal reasons. And you'll find this, in almost any recording situation. Most musicals will have it this way. That actually covers like 90% of the situations I've seen it in personally. But I'm sure there are other situations. And I can tell you, even in like concert settings where you have multiple rehearsals, this actually can save a lot of time as well. So yeah, that's just what I do and what I found out. If it's, there are certain situations where it's not the best. Like if I know there's going to be like 8 or 10 rehearsals on the piece, I'll just get rid of them. It doesn't, at that point, it doesn't really help, because conductors are going to be more willing to do larger sections of music. And in that case, what I would do is I would go, finale. Is I would come back here and, do rehearsal markings, like for the phrases, like every, no, not that. Like every, 2, 8, 16 measures, or whatever the natural phrase breaks are. But most importantly, if you remove them from the part, you also should remove them from the score. So even though, by default, in the score, I have it on every single measure. Oh, for some reason it didn't do measure ranges. I need to fix that. Actually, probably not, because that's not a huge deal. But if you do it in, let's go back up to the measure tool. And let's say it's not shown on every measure here in the parts. So if you don't do it in the parts like that, don't have it in the score, because then the conductor will assume, or someone looking at the score will assume it's measured every single measure in the part. So it just makes it the same. So cool. Hopefully that answers your question. Any last minute things? Or even like comments, was this in general helpful? Do you want to see this again? Anything like that would really help. But if there isn't anything, I'll probably end this live stream soon. But yeah. Okay, well, I think unless something like pops up in like the next, 30 seconds to a minute or so. Glad to be of help, Jeremy. Yeah. So I'm thinking just for fun, since it sounds like there's, that pops up when you scroll. I might try this like one more time next week, same time, same place, if that works for everyone. And maybe have either, if not a Q&A, a different theme. I'll let you guys definitely know about it in the channel. So just be on the lookout for that, because yeah, I think it definitely was helpful. And we'll see how that goes. So again, thanks all of you for watching, and if you stuck around since the beginning, thank you for that. And as always, if you have any questions in the comments, I will get back and answer those. So yeah, thank you. Don't know what else to say, but thank you. I think I'm going to end this. However I end this. Let's see how I can figure out how to end it. End. That's a nice button to have. Well, have a good rest of your day and rest of the weekend.